Morning. I know what you're probably thinking. Okay, what's he doing? He's not behind the pulpit. He's coming down here. Why did I sit on the front row? I feel like I'm sitting in the splash zone. Renee, are you in the splash zone this morning? Well, the answer is, you already know, I've said it before, is, again, I am a member in discernment, seeking ordination in the United Church of Christ, and 2025 is all about my portfolio to lead me towards ecclesiastical counsel, and this is the time, 2025, for me to be trying new things, exploring my style, seeing what works or doesn't work, because you are part of the process. And there is no safer place than IUCC for me to fall flat on my face, and if something doesn't work, Renee again will lift me up and say, "It's okay, Craig, good try, we'll, keep working on it." Now I am looking at this clock and going, originally I wasn't supposed to be on this day, and then when I found out I am on this day, I was worried because I knew time was going to be an issue. So I'm reworking in my mind what I'm doing and trying to cut a little bit. But a part of me is, what's the worst that can happen? If we go a little bit late, the congregational meeting will still happen and everything will be fine. I'm trying out a new approach today. That's why I'm down here. I'm putting on a different hat. I'm putting on my teacher hat. I'm in teacher mode today. Because it is a passion that I have, and Jesus was a teacher, call me rabbi, and so here we are in the sacred classroom of our sanctuary, and my hope was to hear as many voices as we could today about faith in our sacred classroom of sorts. In my portfolio that I'm responsible for creating, the second thing that I have to do is present my statement of faith. What do I believe? So I thought, what better way to talk about faith and hear about our faith, talk about UCC faith than this morning? All right, because I've got teacher mode on, I thought we'd engage in a little tiny acting exercise game that I play with my students at Cal State Fullerton. It's very simple. If you can play a simple game, you can play a more complicated game. If you can play complicated games, you can play difficult ones. Play difficult ones, you're ready for Hamlet. This game is super simple. All we are going to do is start and stop clapping together 5 times. I will always say go. I will say ready, go. Now, here's the hard part. If somebody starts early, somebody throws in a 6th clap, somebody doesn't clap, back there in the tech booth thinking they're free from doing this, we have to start over. What more way to eat time this morning? 5 times starting and stopping together. Everybody clear? Ready? Go. That is a miracle. No one ever does it on the first time. And think about it. How often in life is it that we find a moment where 80 to 100 people singularly focused on one thing, concentration, you could feel the atmosphere in the room accomplishing something together. That is a miracle in my book. Imagine what we could do when we put our minds together. Now that I have your attention, I've called this series Preaching the Portfolio as I create this portfolio in 2025. It's not really the launch today. I would say the launch was UCC Sunday when we talked about UCC. But I'm going to take every opportunity in 2025 to share with you this portfolio that I'm creating, again, because you're part of it. So faith, as I said, faith is today. Now, I was going to have us all read the UCC statement of faith again together. But for sake of time, we'll just cut that. Now, what I learned from UCC Sunday is you may not have realized, likely may not have realized, that the UCC has a statement of faith. Our denomination believes something. And that is the 1959 statement of faith shortly after the UCC became the denomination that it is. Now, I've got a couple deacons on microphones. Did anybody have a reaction to hearing that they're willing to share in Lisa's reading of the statement of faith? Anybody willing to share a reaction to that? Yeah. Myrna, they're coming with a microphone.
I know that I've heard it many times, but I would love if they would change the pronouns to they, them instead of he.
So a little exclusive in its language?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Which I'm disappointed.
Renee?
I would just say that's the first time I heard it read in this church.
And what did you think about having it read in church?
I thought it was okay. I grew up in the Lutheran church where we recited the Apostles' Creed every Sunday, so I'm used to statements of faith. There were parts of it, and I can't really tell you that I think are certainly UCC-like, but with my faith background as a Lutheran, it's not as religious as certainly what I grew up in.
I had the same reaction when I first read it, that I thought of the Apostles' Creed and congregations that read the Apostles' Creed on a regular basis. I also found it, for my taste, a little churchy. It's very triune, and, being the progressive community that we are, it was a little surprising to me. Just a little background and a little history. So when the UCC came together in 1957, it was 4 Christian denominational threads coming together. In case you don't know what makes the UCC, it's really Puritans that came over on the Mayflower and settled at Plymouth Rock. It's a whole bunch of German Lutherans and other reformers from continental Europe, and then Christian denominational threads born of the plains of Western expansion, revivals and the Great Awakening. They all come together and form the church in 1957. And they had a need to say, this is what we believe in. There's something that we agree on. Now, the Statement of Faith has actually been revised twice. It's a living document. We're careful about calling it a creed. It was updated last in 1991. Of late, though, those later revisions, there's a moniker that sometimes comes with the UCC. Unitarians Considering Christ. And that we're just a step away and, sometimes accused of throwing Jesus alongside the baby out with the bathwater. The UCC Statement of Faith sort of acknowledges, no, that's not the case. But the UCC also has this history of autonomy, freedom of conscience, a strong, fierce belief in governance by the people, a resistance to church hierarchy and authority. And so enshrined in our bylaws and our Constitution is, when it comes to faith, we may have this statement of faith, but what we believe, nobody can tell IUCC, what it is that we do believe. So that is why, in part, we've got these wonderful, we've got atheists here and agnostics and Christians of all shapes and colors working together to be part of our church. My question now is, so what is faith? If we had to define it, not so much the content of faith, but what is faith? Anyone want to tackle that? Yes, Terry LePage.
For me, it's a synonym of trust.
Okay,
It's not a synonym for belief.
nice. Anyone else? Jean.
For me, it's just a matter of trust. For me, it's trust and surrender. Surrender my will.
Trust and surrender. Anyone else? Yeah, Diane Rust.
For me, it's hypothesis. So I form a hypothesis and I work from that, knowing it may be wrong, but seeing if I can find truth in it and reflect it in my life.
Thank you. Now we could talk all morning and all day on what faith is and what the objects of faith are. I think there are some general characteristics of faith that all definitions seem to carry with it. There is this trust and hope and an optimism that I think carries with it, with faith. A hope that somehow the world will be in a better place, that we're not there yet, that the transformation's still to happen. I think that faith gives meaning to our lives, whatever our faith may be. It gives meaning to our lives. It helps us understand this world that we live in. There's a transcendent quality. It points and orients ourselves towards something that's bigger than ourselves. And I think faith often is in community. We share it in community. Now, the object of that faith can be a whole bunch of different things. There's a theologian that resonates with me, Paul Tillich. He is a 20th century German Protestant theologian, existentialist in his thinking. He resonates with me. And he says, God defines God in very similar ways to what Chris was saying earlier. God is the ground of all being, the source of all that is. It's not a being along other beings. It's not some old man up in his pottery studio. It undergirds all existence. It's a force, being itself. And for Tillich, he defines faith as a state of being ultimately concerned. Faith as ultimate concern. There is something in all of us that we are most concerned about. And whatever we're ultimately concerned about drives our choices and our actions and how we live our lives and what we determine to be, our vocational paths. And if the ground of ultimate being is our object of ultimate concern, we tend to be in alignment. And the farther we move away from the ultimate concern, faith can get distorted. There's an acting term as a corollary that may help. In acting, we talk about objective. Characters in plays have objectives. They want something. They're always going after something. And there's 3 types of objective for a character in a play. There's a simple objective, what you want in this scene. There is an overall objective, what a character wants from the beginning of the play to the end of the play. And the one that's interesting to me is what's called a super objective. And the super objective is what drives a character emotionally. What a character deep down needs to find happiness. And what they're looking for to find meaning and purpose. Similarly, Inside Out, for the Disney fans, Inside Out's 1 and 2, Marquise and Pastor Sarah and the whole family dressed up as characters from Inside Out on Spooky Sunday. These emotions react to the world and experience the world based on these deeper underlying, beneath the surface, core memories and personhood. The point I'm trying to make is there is something in each of us that's guiding our choices and our reactions and perceptions and experience of the world. There's something we are ultimately concerned about. And there's a world of choices out there. It could be money as our ultimate concern. Money, money, money. Got to get more of it. Got to save. Got to put in my 401k. Sex, drugs, and alcohol. One is never enough. Fame and fortune and notoriety. Oh, if I just get this one post to go viral, that's going to be the one. Families and relationships and children can be the focus of our ultimate concern. Ambition, all sorts of things. I could go on and on. Now, at this point, I was going to ask to hear as many more voices as we could from faith, but we're at time, and I really need to wrap up. So I'd like to close, though, with my own statement of faith. Can I share that, and then we'll wrap it up? Okay. So, I believe in God, the ground of all being, the source of all that is. undergirds everything. It's an energy of force. There's no way to escape it. It's part of us. It moves in us and through us and with us. It's a vibrational energy and love that's ultimate. And joy, ultimate joy. I believe in Jesus. That Jesus is an important force in this universe. But I also believe that Muhammad and Abraham and Buddha and Krishna and any other path that points us to the sacred is also an important force in the universe. I believe that to best encounter and understand and discover who Jesus is, you have to, in part, employ your faculties of reason and intellect to understand the historical, economic, political, archaeological, artistic, you name it, context of when Jesus lived and his first century followers who followed him and first articulated their faith experience into writing. I believe that Jesus demands of each of us a life of activism and radical hospitality, which means everyone gets a seat at the table. Particularly those society overlooks or those that is most challenging us for us to do so. We're called to love our neighbor and treat them as we ourselves want to be treated. I believe that loving God and loving neighbor is one single action. You can't do one without the other. So if you are loving God, you are loving the people that you wake from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed, from womb to tomb, all the interactions with other human beings. That love is where we love God. I believe we're created in the image of God. Richard's right with me. The Imago Dei. It is the sacred light within each of us. You are born with it. It is the spark of creation. In theater, I call it the creative, imaginative 9-year-old voice. It is that faculty in part of you that is itching and scratching constantly to make itself known in this world, to create. The ability to take an idea born of the imagination out of nothing. Out of blackness and chaos comes idea born of our imaginations. I say 9-year-old because in part I see it reflected in the world of childlike play when in elementary school we could play in a world of make-believe, dress up on dolls and superheroes, and we did it with complete freedom and abandon without any worry that anybody was watching. Your sacred voice, your vibrational sound that no one else can make. It's yours and yours alone. We all have it. Created in the image of God. But I believe the bedevilments of anger, fear, doubt, self-loathing, jealousy, resentment obscure that light within us. It hides it. It dams it off. And the bedevilments, they slither into our lives through language, piggybacking upon words we say about ourselves and about others. And once they get in there, they like to take hold and spread their tentacles, wreaking havoc on our emotional, physical, and spiritual lives. I believe that the church is the location of transformation. This is the place that we come together to make that promise that we're going to journey life together. It's good, it's bad. We're going to shoulder the difficulties and the challenges together, promising to provoke in each other love. Church is the place that we come together to talk about and discuss and discern this ever-speaking God and how to tell the Jesus story today. Church is the place of sanctuary where I ought to be able to stand before you naked, vulnerable, and exposed, saying, "This is who I am. Welcome." I believe in the sacramental life of church. That in baptism we welcome someone into the fullness of Christian community, and we remember a vocational promise that we're going to try to be followers of this way. I believe that communion is both remembrance and sacred mystical rite that is tied to words spoken out of the Last Supper 2 millennia ago. It's a place where all should be welcome. I believe that there needs to be practice in acknowledging our faults for when we fall short, admitting to ourselves, to God, and to another human being the exact natures of our wrongs. And I believe that forgiveness needs to permeate our very being as a community. Because in my experience, we fall short more often than we get it right. And then last thing I'll say, I believe that love, which we're learning to serve, will now and again, despite being plagued by those bedevilments, service to love and commitment to love will reward us now and again with the greatest joy it is possible to know in this life. Thanks for letting me share my statement of faith, and thank you for sharing yours. I wish we could hear more. Amen. Quickly. Now, because it was a sacred classroom, we've got homework. Homework is go online and look at the 2019 statement of faith when it was revised. See how it's changed and why it's changed. And if you do your homework, next Sunday, come to me and say, hey, I did my homework. And I have a prize for you if you do that. Know and be willing to articulate your faith. What is it that you believe? Spend some time this week in reflection on your object of ultimate concern. And then last but not least, you got a little slip of paper that when you came in today. If you write down on that index card anything that you believe, your own quick statement of faith, something you took from this morning, anything that you want, write it down. We would appreciate if you put your name with it as well. Jerry Davenport and I are working on a little piece of art, and we want to capture your faith in what we're creating here. So if you want to, write something down, just throw it in this basket. And that's your homework for the day. Amen. Will you stand for our closing blessing? As you journey forth now, may your sacred light shine brightly. Your divine spark, your creative, imaginative 9-year-old voice transforming this world. May you embrace the radical hospitality of Jesus, caring for others as you care for yourself, particularly those we overlook most. Go now in peace, with joy in your heart, love in all your actions, hope abiding in your spirit. May creation itself, the message of Jesus, and the interconnectedness of all living things guide and protect you always. Amen.